Behind the Shades.
I am Mangala Holland. I'm a women's empowerment and sexuality coach, and I specialize in helping women overcome insecurities, hang-ups, and shutdowns so that they can feel more confident in themselves and awaken powerful orgasms and full-bodied pleasure so that they can go out there and live life to the fullest and feel fulfilled and whole. You can find me at my website, which is mangalaholland.com. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram as well, Mangala Holland. You'll find me there. Yeah.
So I know everyone probably stood up in their chair when they heard powerful orgasms.
Yeah.
Right? Because I know I did. I was like, what is that? Because I definitely need to learn more about that. So before we get to that point, give us the genesis of this journey for you. How did you start along this path and what got you into it?
Yeah. I'll keep this, it's a long story that I'll condense it. Back in my old life, I was working in England and I was working in corporate jobs. I was working in stockbrokers and legal firms, and I was also a DJ. So I was DJing 3 or 4 nights a week, playing in bars and clubs, playing house music. And I did that for a long time. And basically, I burnt out because I was having too much fun. And yeah, I had a really good social life, but yeah, I burnt out. And when I burnt out, I realized that actually I'd been partying way too hard for basically 2 decades. And essentially underneath all that, I realized that I actually didn't love myself and I hated my body and I felt very disconnected from my sexuality, and I hadn't had fulfilling relationships, and all I'd been having was a string of really bad one-night stands that left me feeling full of shame. And I realized that at the core of everything, I was just holding so much shame. And so I took a year off to go travel, and I did the classic go find yourself and did a lot of spiritual stuff on my journey. And I realized that that was it. At the core of it, I had to sort out this shame and the self-loathing and the hatred of my body and all of this stuff. And that led me into the Tantra world. And so I started exploring sacred sexuality and exploring what that meant. And I had some really profound breakthroughs within that environment. And this is where I started discovering powerful orgasms for myself. And it was like, oh my God, I want to shout this from the rooftops. I want everyone to know that they're capable of having these incredible, mind-blowing cosmic experiences. It was like nothing I'd ever had before. But at the same time, the environment I was in Thailand by this point. That environment was super unhealthy, and there was a lot of manipulation of women and a lot of really horrible dogmatic stuff about what it means to be masculine, what it means to be feminine, and it was super harmful. And so I called out a lot of abuse in that community, and as I left that community, I was like, I want to offer something for women and vulva owners that is safe, that they can learn this stuff without the predators, because there were a lot of predators in that environment. And so that was the fuel for me to do what I'm now doing. And I've been doing this, I've been teaching sexuality for 10 years now. I've got an international client base of amazing people all over the world, and helping them become fulfilled. And it's awesome.
I know for me, I had to learn how I wanted to represent myself in the bedroom. Because it's not something you can go to your mom and dad say, hey mom, hey dad,
Yeah.
can you show me some of your favorite positions in the bedroom? Right? Because they're going to be like, you're too young for this type of conversation. Go back to your room, read your Bible, do your Hail Marys, and off you go, right?
Yeah.
And then I had to learn my body first. And then I had to become comfortable in my body first. When you mentioned that, because you had a string of relationships and what some young people call situationships these days, right? You realize that, hey, I don't want this anymore. some of the clients that you deal with, when they get to you, are they at the point where they don't want it anymore, or are they still going through those toxic relationships, one night stands? They're still running through that whole gauntlet of roller coaster emotions.
That's a really, really good question. I would say most of them have got to the point where it's like, okay, that way of doing things isn't working. Or like a lot of my clients are 40s and 50s and kind of over. And so it's like what worked for us in our 20s doesn't work for us as we get older, and we can't override things with hormones and alcohol and whatever worked. We used to just go out and pick people up in clubs and take them home, and it's different as we get older. But you touched on something really key when you said learn in my body and feel comfortable in my body, and this is the key of all of it. And it's so much of what we see in movies and in porn is performative, and it's not realistic, and it's make-believe, and real life isn't necessarily like that. It can be awkward, it can be clumsy, there can be more humor, it can be very, very different. And unfortunately, people see what they see in movies and porn and think, oh, I'm not like that, therefore there must be something wrong with me. And so I really, really want to help people find their authentic selves, because that's what's confident, that's what's sexy. Yeah.
I went on a date years back, and the reason why I bring this up is you mentioned performative, and we hit it off. It was a good time, couple of dates, and back then there was always this like 3-date rule, right? So I'm feeling kind of good. It's a third date. I'm like, terrain, it's about to go down, right? So after the date, we go back to her place and we had the conversation, and then things started happening. And as we're getting into the mood, I guess she was feeling kind of anxious is the word. So she accidentally headbutt me. And it hurt. And I was like, God, and it kind of like ruined the mood in a way, right? So we talked about it, we laughed, and then a couple of days later, we went on date number 4, right? And then we found ourselves in the same situation. She headbutts me again.
Oh my goodness.
So I'm thinking at this point, it's like an awkward response to the situation, right? Because who gets headbutted twice when they're trying to do it? Then I started thinking, is it me? Am I leaning in too close? And I bring that up because you mentioned it's awkward, it's clumsy. How do you talk someone through that where they're like, hey, Mangala, I just headbutted someone twice when I'm trying to get intimate with them. I don't want to do it a third time.
Yeah, I always say there's something there about relaxing more. It sounds like, just like that because that's that core of it, like feeling like I've got to get this right, especially like the second time if you had that happened the first time. There's so much pressure that we put on ourselves, that it's got to go a certain way, that it's got to be right, and that this is a new person, and I want them to be happy, and I don't want to let them down, or I don't want to let myself down, and all of this stuff. It brings in so much expectation and so much pressure. And I think humor is a great thing. It absolutely can just lift everything so much. And I think slowing things down, relax, take it easy, making sure you're not in your head, but that you're in your body. And this is something that so many of my female clients come to me with. They're like, I just feel like I'm in my head all the time, or things will go all right, and then something happens, and then they go into their head, and then they can't come back from it, and then they feel like they're uptight, and that can be totally undone and worked out completely.